Hi everyone. So today we are going to present you Fuego, which is a framework to generate automatically OpenAPI description.
Okay, so first of all, let's introduce ourselves. So Ewen and I met at Theodo, so software developing consulting company. And at Theodo, we have some informal meetings where we can learn so much more about Golang technologies. And in this context, Ewen seduced me with his brand new project that is a framework, Golang framework that generates OpenAPI specification. And so here we are. And so at Theodo, we are building APIs and websites. And so a major issue we can encounter is that not having a single source of truth for our API specification or documentation. And this can result to a misconception about how the API is working, and it could lead to a situation where the front-end team saying, "Hi, the API team, there is a bug in the API," but the API team is responding that there is no bug and it's just a brand new feature. So how can you align both API producer and consumers? And there is a standard for that is called OpenAPI. And the OpenAPI initiative tends to fully detail interface contract between REST API and API. And it could took several formats, such as JSON or YAML description. But however, the description is well standardized. You have all the description of your API. You have descriptions, examples, and the type of the request body or the response body, for example. So it's great for machines, but it's quite unreadable for human and maintainable. But that's why there is also UI you can plug in. So maybe you're familiar with Swagger UI, but here we choose to present the stoplight UI. So on the left, you have all your endpoints grouped by domain. On the center part, much more about the endpoints, the description, response body, and stuff. And on the right, the interactive part of the documentation where you can try the endpoint, get the curl of the request if you're much more familiar with your terminal. I've also example response. So we see that the OpenAPI description is great for machines, but also humans. So machines can generate client code, for example, from this OpenAPI description, and human can consume the endpoint and try it. But how about the REST API part of the schema? How do you manage the REST API to deal with the OpenAPI description? So while developing the framework, we found two approaches. The first one is to generate the OpenAPI spec from the source code. So here you have an example in the Fast API, where you can see we add the decorator on top of the function definition, and it will just add the following in the OpenAPI description. And the second approach is to write the OpenAPI description and then generate the boilerplate server code. And it will provide you an interface, and you would need to fulfill the interface for the API working. But I'll let Ewen the difference between both of these approaches.
Yeah, so for Fuego, we prefer using the code first approach. We find it better than doc first for several reasons. First of all, it's faster to prototype because you're not focusing on just a specification file. So you're really coding, which is more faster to iterate on than to change a specification document. Also, it's easier to use, so your developers already know how to code, because OpenAPIs is a whole new specification to learn, and it can be quite cumbersome to use, and you might not know every details of the specification. So yeah, it's easier to go with the code, and then the spec will follow. And at the end, for flexibility, easier to refactor code, where we have type safety and reusability of many things, than to refactor a YAML spec, which at the end is just a text file, so you can do many mistakes. And even if they are validators, it's really easy not to refactor every endpoint, but with code, you can have a lot of safeguards. But we have to be honest, it has two main cons. First, we have less emphasis on design. So, for example, the front-end team cannot give an OpenAPI description and ask the backend team to implement it. It's more a backend-led approach. But in the end, the front-end team can also just come with a document, and the backend team will try to match as a target the document. So it can be done. And also to limitation, because you can do a very complicated and complete API description, whereas if you have a code generator, it will not generate every small detail that you can write on a specification, which is just, again, a text file. So yeah. But it goes both ways, because doc-first generators might not generate all the code you want. So it goes both ways. So what's the state of the art of code-first frameworks for OpenAPI? So we have Nest in TypeScript for JavaScript. We have FastAPI for Python and API Platform for PHP, for example. And these are all dynamic languages. But we have a big issue for dynamic languages. It is that it's dynamically typed. So we have a triple source of truth. For example, in Nest, we have TypeScript on the IDE. We have the JavaScript, which is executed on the server, which can differ, and at the end, the OpenAPI specification. Okay, but we have to reunite these types, and one advantage of Go is that it's strongly statically typed, meaning that the types run on the servers, the real ones, are also declared on the IDE, because types in Go are physical. Also, we have good performance out of the box by using Go, and we have a fantastic error handling system that can be quite a relief as opposed to exceptions. But we have all the three advantages while keeping simplicity, because if you use heavy frameworks on some languages like Rust or Java, okay, we have the strong static typing, but it can be really complex to use. We'll see that Fuego is really simple as the dynamic languages. So yeah, as you guessed it, we made Fuego, which is a 100% accurate OpenAPI generator for Go. And it uses the latest feature of the Go programming languages, like generics and the built-in router. There are also a lot of features, so we are compatible with the Go standard library, meaning it's not a lock-in to use Fuego. You can always fall back on the standard library, which is really interesting, because as opposed to some languages where the ecosystems heavily relies on frameworks, for example, Express, Koa, H3 for JS. In Go, the ecosystem tends to rely on the standard library. So having a framework that relies on the main point of Go is quite something that we can want. We handle serialization and deserialization to generate JSON or XML if you want. We have a validator. As we manipulate types, it's easier to have standardized validation. We also have small tools like transformation, so we can, for example, trim all the incoming strings and things like this. We have centralized error handling, which implements the latest RFC. We also handle rendering HTML and content negotiation. So you just return your type, and Fuego takes care of serializing as whatever the client asks. So what does it look like? Here it's a controller. You can see that we declare a post root on the slash root, so the main one. We have a context with some input type, and we return the output type and maybe an error. For the serialization, we can have a context.body. You can see that it's easily understandable by developers, even if you don't know Go. So very easy to read and to use daily. For the root declaration, you can declare several parameters here. As you can see, we can declare pagination, some query parameters. We can add the description. It looks like a decorator pattern, but it's not that. In Go, we have something that is called variadic options pattern, which is very powerful because it looks like a decorators, but it is strongly typed. You can integrate Fuego in your workflow. So first of all, locally, we have start time generation. So whenever the server starts, the documentation is updated. So you never have out of date documentation, and also it generates it in parallel in another Go routine, so it doesn't impact the start time. And across team, you have the choice to expose the OpenAPI, for example, for non-production environments. You have also obtained the on-demand generation, meaning generate the spec without starting the server. And we encourage you to use golden file target mechanism to make sure that the other teams are using the correct and latest OpenAPI description. You can also use documents like OAS diff to see the difference between the old spec and the new one that can easily be understandable, for example, by product owners.
All right, guys, let's do a little demo of Fuego Framework. So we prepared to you guys a simple Go API. And just to prove you that it works, we're going to test it right now. So I'm going to launch a server and test the hello root. All right, so we get hello. And here the goal will be to use Fuego to add the OpenAPI description of this API, and maybe add a little more and show you some simple feature of Fuego to make you to just show you how it works. So first, let's declare a new Fuego server with the new server method of the Fuego package, Fuego module. Here we're gonna pass it an argument to match the current output port. So it's the Fuego with address option, and we're gonna pass it localhost 80 port. All right, and we're gonna wrap all of this structure inside the method that is backward compatible with the standard library. So it's the Fuego get standard, and we're gonna pass it to server to register the root. In here, we don't need this line anymore, but we need to run our server. All right, in here, we can see that the Fuego server had started and that documentation has been generated. So here you can see a folder with the OpenAPI specification, and we get both of our endpoints well documented. And so here I have a brand new endpoint that I can call. It's called the Swagger. And we arrive on the UI interface. So here we have the hello endpoint. We can test it. Okay, great. So now maybe we can add a new endpoint. Okay, let's talk about books. So we'll call it books. Here I can pass the context. I can access the context. I can pass the body. Sorry, with Fuego context no body because there isn't anybody. And let's return just a string and an error for the moment. Let's return Harry Potter. All right. Here, let's take time for the UI to relaunch. And here we have a brand new endpoint. Here, the books, and when we try it, it returns, well, Harry Potter. But here, let's have a better naming in the endpoint list. So to correct this, we just have to move this function declaration out of the scope. Let's do this quickly. Get books. Pass it on the endpoint declaration. All right. And we have get books, much more readable. All right, so now let's create a real book structure. Name that would be a string, and the page number would be an integer. And let's return now, instead of a string, a book struct. We'll still leave it as Harry Potter for now. Let's give it a page number. Would be, let's say, 400. All right. And so here, when we try our endpoint, we can see it's already refresh, and we have the body response here directly. So here, everybody that will use the spec will get this response. And when we send an API request, we have the Harry Potter and the page number. If you remember as well, we talked about content negotiation. So here is JSON response, but we could put here XML because we want XML. So you just have to put the meme type of the content you want. So for example, here application/XML, and we get the XML response. But let's leave it as JSON for now. All right. So maybe here we would have query parameters. With the query option. Query. Yes. Let's give it a name, so it will be the name, and a quick description. All right, and we could access it directly here from the context. We see that query parameter, and we want just the name. And here you can see that now I have a brand new query params that called name, and if I pass it Titanic, for example, I get back Titanic. All right, but Fuego is not just about generating the specification, OpenAPI spec, it's also a CLI. So if I want to generate the whole CRUD operation of an entity, for example, here, books, I can call the Fuego CLI with Fuego C for controller and specify the name of the entity you want. All right, and so we can see that controller has been created. And here, in fact, we have a brand new folder with the books and all the CRUD operation, all the routes are declared. And so it generates also a book service interface. So we try to match a kind of a pattern where you have injection dependency, kind of. So here you will have to provide a book service that match the interface and inject it in the book resources here. But just for the demo, we're gonna instantiate a book resource without any service, just to make it appear in the description. So from the controller module, we have the book resources, and we're gonna just register the book resources rules, passing it the server. Great. And here, when we refresh, oh yeah, I forgot to relaunch the server. All right. No. All right. And here we have a brand new domain, books, with all the CRUD operation. And so, yeah, that's it. That's Fuego. You see that in just 10 minutes, we generate the fully reliable OpenAPI specification that is exactly matching the types that the code runs under the hood. So I'll let Ewen conclude about the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Edouard. So as you saw, it was really easy in just 10 minutes to generate a specification and a code that is matching the specs. So yeah, we're really happy that it works. What we keep of this project is that first, don't hesitate to share your library to the world. When we started, it was a minimal working version, so it wasn't as much as you saw today, but it didn't stop the project from being exposed on the spotlight. And then it was community driven. We have more than 900 stars, 25 contributors, a lot of issues, comments, and pull requests to improve the project on a daily basis. So yeah, the community is awesome. Thank you everyone for helping us. Now we are known in our company for being the open source guys. We didn't expect that before. It's interesting, and it allows us to speak in talks and meetups. So yeah, don't be shy. It really is an incredible adventure. Thank you everyone. So don't hesitate to try Fuego. And thank you.
And to contribute also, you can check the GitHub pages and try it yourself. Thank you, guys.